Hello to you, friends. This is Dhamma on Air number 18, and it's recorded April 8, 2016. Despite the wind today, we are back under the tree. There are 7 questions, but first a normal intro. Namo. Tassu. Bhagavato. Arahato. Samma Sambuddhassa. Worthy, honorable, and perfectly self-enlightened was the blessed Buddha. The first question goes like this. What is the 5 aggregates, the 5 clusters of clinging, the 5 khandhas in Pali? Form, feeling, perception, mental construction, and consciousness. I repeat. Form, feeling, perception, mental construction, and consciousness. 1 physical, 4 mental. Are these 5 clusters of clinging a karmic result of past behavior? Or are these 5 clusters clinging simply a guide to understanding no self, anatta? The first question, are these 5 clusters clinging a karmic result of past behavior? Yes, clearly they are. There are mainly 4 causes to these 5 clusters of clinging. They keep reoccurring in this moment, and in the next moment, and in the next moment after death. First, what are the 5 clusters of clinging? How are they defined? Yeah, form is rupa. Internal rupa is the body. External rupa is other people's body, other beings' body, animals' bodies, for example, devas' bodies, and the external world, the external forms, such as mountains, oceans, planets, trees, stones, and what have you. This is the physical realm. Rupa just means form. Rupanti, what can break up, what can fall apart. Rupa. Feeling, Vedana. This is clinging to this form, the external form of the world and other beings, and the internal form, one's own body, which is just a frame, just a form. Is clinging to that. That is the first cluster of clinging. The second cluster of clinging is clinging to feeling. What is feeling? Is pleasant feeling, painful feeling, and neutral feeling. Clinging to that is clinging to feeling, Vedana. Clinging to perception is visual perception, is something you see. And to seeing, this process of seeing itself, and being able to see something one hears, smells, tastes, touches, and thinks. Something one perceives through the 6 senses. Clinging to that, which is basically the perception of our entire world and ourselves, and whoever other beings that are, family and friends and so on. This is clinging to perception. Clinging to mental construction. Mental construction is defined, sankhara, is the prime mental construction is intention, cetana. So you want to do something in this world, with this world. So this intention comes in the form of planning, hoping, wanting to do, wanting this, not wanting that. So this is mental construction. All kinds of thinking, any kind of conceptual thinking, any verbal activity is mental construction. But the karmically active mental construction is the derivatives of intention. And then consciousness, of which there are 6 kinds. Visual consciousness, auditory consciousness, consciousness of the heard, consciousness of sound. Olfactory consciousness, that can sense or perceive or cognize smell. Gustatory consciousness, which can cognize taste. Tactile consciousness, which can cognize touch and the movement of the limbs. and mental consciousness, which can cognize idea and thoughts and mental states. It's clinging to these 5 clusters of clinging that normally defines a being. We don't say this is a being or that is a being. We say it's a 5 khandhas. It's kind of like a box of 5 things. They are momentary, these 5 khandhas. They arise and cease at every moment. So it's not the same form out there. It's not the same form here. It's not the same feeling. It's not the same perception. It's not the same mental construction, planning, hoping, intending. And it's not the same consciousness from one moment to the next moment. But these 5 khandhas is a kind of like all-inclusive definition of what a being is, or what the process of being is, the impersonal process of being is. It's an exchange of these 5 phenomena. If you say the 5 khandhas, the 5 clusters of clinging, or the 5 aggregates, it's a box in which you have 5 things. For example, 5 fruits. But they are continuously coming in and going out. So it's never the same that is down in this box. There's nothing outside of these 5 clusters of clinging. So it's an all-inclusive definition. For example, this tree, you see a tree. So this is visual perception. It's visual consciousness. It's a form, rupa. So it can be classified, different things. The same thing can be classified in many classes. But it's an all-inclusive classification scheme of 5 classes. There's no phenomena, neither internally nor externally, that cannot come down in these 5 classes, these 5 clusters of clinging. That's so far so good. It is these 5 clusters of clinging that travels through samsara. The Buddha, he likened them to 5 killers that were after you with a big sword, and you have to go inside a big flock of people who are looking at the dancing queen, a very beautiful lady, and there's a lot of hustle and bustle, and you have a boil of oil on your head, and this is full to the brim. And if you spill a drop, one of these 5 clusters of clinging, in the sense of serial killers, they chop off your head, chop, right there, right then. And so these 5 clusters of clinging, the Buddha said, it's like 5 killers that follow you from life to life to life. They keep killing you. Why is that so? Because one keeps clinging to them. One cannot release them, let them go. So one becomes that. The process of being becomes that. 5 clusters of clinging to something that is ephemeral, something that is momentary, something that is passing in and out for every moment. Not real, not to be kept, not mine, not me, not what I am, not what you are, but just the 5 clusters of clinging. Are they created by in the past? Yes, they are. So in the past, all these actions that has as a kind like an immanent basis that there was ignorance about that form is always suffering, feelings is always suffering, perception is always suffering, mental construction is always suffering, and consciousness is always suffering. Why? Because it is impermanent. It doesn't last. You cannot keep it. All these karmas, all these intentions, all these hopings, through all our immense period of life, also now, one is kind of like having an imminent desire, if you're seeing this video, to see more. So there's some desire to see, to have a visual perception, using visual consciousness, and have a pleasant feeling of understanding from this visual consciousness, and also hearing this auditory consciousness. So this is kind of like seeping in through all kinds of activities through the day. Because there's this cluster of clinging now to these 5 phenomena, form, feeling, perception, mental construction, and consciousness, one get a new set of 5 phenomena in the next moment, and in the next life, and in the next universe. One have to carry them around. So it is, there's, you can say, 3 karma defines getting these 5 clusters of clinging and thereby also getting suffering. It is ignorance that they are suffering, lust for them, lust for form, lust for internal form, lust for external form, lust for other people's body, for example, during sex, lust for feeling, pleasant feeling, lust for mental construction, hoping, planning this and that, daydreaming about this and that, wanting to be this and that, having this and that in the future, and wanting to be conscious, basically, not wanting to be unconscious. It's lust for consciousness, visual consciousness, auditory consciousness, and so on, gustatory consciousness, that creates the cluster of clinging in the next life. So try to think about how you, in your daily activities, just wandering around, having contact with the world, this lust, which is karmically active, and this craving for these 5 clusters of clinging, and this ignorance that they are not suffering. They are suffering, but one is not aware about it while enjoying them, while being around with them, while toying around with them through the process of existence. So this is what creates the karma. This is what creates the clusters of clinging in the next life and in the next moment also. It's a conditioning, long-term conditioning. So there was ignorance that one is not aware that they are suffering. There's lust for them. Then there's karma in order to get them. So the karma to getting a physical body is feeding. And the karma to get perception is contact. One seeks contact with the world, to see something, to hear something. You have clicked a link to see this video. This is contact, huh? Passa. So contact creates or conditions feeling, perception, and mental construction to come into being. Then naming and forming, it conditions consciousness to come into being. And then you have it there. Then it's not easy to get rid of, because one has to get rid of clinging. To get rid of clinging, then one has to get rid of craving. To get rid of craving, one has to stop feeling. So, or cut craving from feeling. And that's not an easy thing to do, but possible. Normally, any pleasant feeling will induce craving towards the object. Any unpleasant feeling, painful feeling, will induce craving away from the object. And any indifferent feeling will create craving towards being free from the object, being able to neglect the object, that does not exist, so one can have a pleasant object. Are these 5 clusters clinging as simply a guide to understanding no self? They can be used very effectively to understand that there is no self. Because inside, if you have this box of 5 phenomena, form, feeling, perception, mental construction, and consciousness, and you see that this box is always new, that there's something coming in and something coming out, then the box can have a name. But the name of the box outside, Julius Caesar, for example, or Queen Elizabeth, doesn't signify what's inside the box. It only signifies the box, the frame. And what comes in and comes out is what there really is the content of the box. It's what you can say is a more realistic evaluation of what an individuality is. An individuality is not a person, not an identity, not a self. There's some 5 changing phenomena coming in and out that arises and ceases momentarily, re-arises and ceases momentarily again, re-arises and ceases momentarily again. So it comes into the box and leaves again instantly. Never the same. There's never the same form, never the same feeling, never the same perception, never the same mental construction, nor never the same consciousness down in the box. But the box can still have a name. But the name is only a label outside. It's not an identity, because there's nothing that is identical down in the box. So yes, it can be used to understand anatta doctrine, no self doctrine or principle. Indeed it can. Question 2. Do you have a description about the hungry ghost dimension, the peta worlds? Yes, I have. I have several. And I will read up what the Buddha he said about the peta worlds. In general, I can say just that they are described as having very big bellies, are gray or blackish of color, can become in all sizes and different, also large variation in outer form, having very long limbs, very small hands, so kind of like 6-meter limbs, and a hand that is small like this outside, and same with their feet. Mouth very small, said to be small as a hole in a needle hole. Sometimes they have no upper lip, only underlip. No, sometimes they have no underlip, only upper lip. Sometimes they have no lips. You can see the teeth inside their mouth. Fairly large eyes. But they can have many various forms, often described as very ugly and very unhappy, often crying. So why are they crying? Because they cannot get what they want. They cannot get any food. Still, they continue to persist. They have a physical body, but not the same physical body as we have. They can see us, we cannot see them. They are generally described as being in the same world as we are, and can follow around. Usually, if they have desire, let's say it's a thief or one person who has perpetrated, committed fraud, taxation evasion, something like repeated insurance fraud, like that, taken misappropriated funds, or taken something that was not theirs, or cheating with valuables, some kind in that direction. This is what makes a hungry ghost. They will have, if they have a desire for their own house, when they die inside the house, they will remain around this house and stand around the walls, can go through walls. The Thai calls them shades, hungry shades. So hungry ghost is probably the best expression. Hungry spirits are also a translation that has been mentioned. I just give a text here by the Buddha where he tells people to give and then dedicate the merit to the hungry ghost, because there's 8 kind of ghosts, and one of them, of these 8 kind of ghosts, if some of their family members dedicate the merit given to them after having given something to the Sangha or having given something to somebody else, then dedicate the merit to their family members, which is effective 7 generations back. Then those family members who have been reborn because of evil karma, they can be freed from their existence, or can get food in the world where they usually cannot get food. And there are different kinds of food they can eat when they can eat something at all. It can be corpses, it can be dead children, unborn children, it can be menstruations, something very disgusting things like that. So in general, they have no access to food for millions and billions of years. There's 2 stories from the commentaries which I always think about myself. One is about Sariputta. He's giving a speech to somebody. There's also a king present, and a lot of devas also coming and listening. And then his mother from some lives back, she also wants to hear, and she's a ghost. But the devas, they push her back. They don't want to have present until she explains that she was Sariputta's mother some 2 or 3 lives back. And then they allow her to stand in the front and hear what he has to say. After the speech, she then asks, begs a permission of her to give an offer to her, to dedicate some merit to her. And Sariputta then feels compassion with his former mother. So he asks the king, he explains the king about the problem, who cannot see the peta, the ghost. And the king then agrees to give 7 huts, 7 meditation huts to Sariputta. So he get 7 meditation huts built and later on he give them to Sariputta. Sariputta then, now is his, Sariputta's, so he gives them onto the Sangha, and the mirror he dedicates to his former mother, which is then released at that particular moment when he dedicates the mirror, right when he dedicates the mirror from these 7 meditation huts, which he got as a present from the king. And from this story, which is from the Digha Nikaya, the oldest text, we know of the reality of the Peta world. Another story is actually when a Buddha, he comes and goes to a dana also with another king. There's also a lot of ghosts there. And they have been told by the former Buddha, Buddha Kassapa, they request him for food. And he sees into the ghost being that if he give them food, then the food will become glowing embers, or it will become ash, or it will disappear right on the spot. Because it's not in their, within their range of options or chances or quantum mechanical probability that they can get food. It's out of the question. So it evaporates or goes into fire or ashes if they get it, right before they put it into the mouth. So he's saying, I can't do it, but in 100 million years, there comes another Buddha. He's called Siddhartha Gautama. And he will go to a certain king and get some offerings. And this king is in your family, is a member of your family, less than 7 generations back. So you go and request the king at that particular moment. Then the Buddha also will ask him, he will tell them, he will see that I have said this, given you this promise, this permission, and he will tell the king to dedicate the mirror to you. Then you can get something to eat in 100 million years. And just by knowing that they can get some food, that there is some food for them in the future, because their life length is infinite. It has no finiteness. They have to stay a peta until their karma is exhausted. So they have no finite life length, no maximum life length. But just knowing that, it's reported that just knowing that they will get food in 100 million years, they become jubilant, because now they know they will get something at least. So this shows something about their situation, how hopeless it is with these immense long periods of despair, immense periods where they cannot get anything and where they have to drag around with a very ugly, very uncomfortable body. Buddha spoke on ghosts who walk through walls, can walk through walls, and who need our help. The benefit of giving and dedication of merit. Outside the walls, he said, they stand and wait, and at the junction of road forks, returning to their former homes, urging, they wait beside the post of gates. But when a rich feast is set out of food and drink of every kind, remember the fact that few humans do recall. These transparent, you can look right through them, ghosts was created from their past own acts. So whoever are compassionate, who have a heart to give to their relatives such drink and food as may be pure and good and fitting in these times, then this food of this ghost relative, may these relatives have happiness. So once you dedicate the merit to them, give something and then say, for the merit, for the pin, the punya, won by this giving, this dana, may my former relatives, may they gain freedom and happiness from that. So one gives away the karma. There's actually, when you're giving away the karma, you get another copy of the karma yourself. So it's here as a probability fork. Giving also away karma is also giving. So one doesn't lose anything by giving it away. May our peta relatives live long, wish that, owing to whom we have this gain. They have done a lot of things to us, but there's no one ever given to them. There's no plowing there in these dimensions, nor any cattle herding, no any merchandising, no any bartering for coin of gold. The ghosts of our departed family live there on anything given only here. They live there in their dimension, giving on what we give here. As water showered on the hill flows down to reach the hollow whale, so giving, whatever is given here can serve the ghost of your departed family there. As riverbeds, when full, can bear the water down to fill the sea, so what is given here can serve the ghost of the departed family, your departed family, there. He gave to me, he worked for me, he has family, friends, and intimate. Give gifts then for the departed ones, recalling what they used to do. Neither weeping, nor sorrowing, nor any kind of mourning will help these departed ones, these petas, these hungry ghosts, whose family remained unhelpful for them, and thus acting thus silly. But when this offering is given and well placed in the Sangha, for them it can serve a long future, and at once as well. So he says that if one gives a gift to the Sangha and dedicate the merit to them, they will have instant effect, and it can also serve them a long time. The true Dhamma for relatives has here been shown, and how high honor to departed one is done, and how the bhikkhus can be given strength as well, and how great merit can be stored away by you. So at all givings, what he say here is you should have compassion with your family, 7 generations back. Because some of them, they are living through these immense periods of deprivation and sorrow by being this hungry ghost because of some things they were tempted to do many lives ago. So since we can help them, we should help them. And that is standard by dedicating the merit. When you come here to a dana here in Sri Lanka, food is set out is first. To whoever wanted outside, the bhikkhus get food, then they also give a little bit on a special plate. This is set aside to the petas, the hungry ghost. And then there's a special dedication of merit afterwards, where one dedicate the merit from this dana, both from the lay people and from the monk side, to whoever in our family, personal family, 7 generations back, can benefit from it. And since this is their only chance of getting something, and this is a much better option than if there are ghosts of other kind, they cannot get something. But for example, holding an expensive funeral for them, this doesn't help them. They can stand there and look on their own funeral. A lady from Burma, she reported this, and when she was an old lady, she died. Then as she saw her own funeral, and then she wondered, why are they paying so much attention to this body? There was a lot of flowers, and the whole family, maybe 100 people, were meeting to the funeral to dig down this corpse. When I was alive, they didn't give me flowers or anything. So why are they making all this fuss now when I'm dead, looking at her own corpse? She reflected like that. And that's a point to it, huh? So we do a lot of silly rituals towards the corpse, but we forget to give what we can give to these very unfortunate beings. They suffer a lot. They are wailing in despair, but in vain, repenting their evil deeds. And there are ghosts who can feed on corpses, or excrement, or abortions, or menstruation, or ash, or earth, or glowing embers, or many kinds of similar pains. Ghost existence is mainly the result of stealing and cheating with valuables. From the Kanja Pradipani, the manual of the 5 destinies, goes the following. Those who steal food and who are too lazy for doing good deeds becomes corpse menstruating eating ghosts, or abortion eating ghosts. Whoever so are engaged in low praxis, mean, miserly, avaricious, stingy, and then constantly greedy are born after death as a swollen neck ghost. So very greedy, no good doing, swollen neck ghost. Very descriptive. Redneck ghost, you can call it. Whoever prevents others from giving and does not give himself anything becomes an ever hungry and thirsty ghost, needle-mouthed and big-bellied. Whoever clings to his wealth only for his family, but who neither enjoys nor shares is rebirth as a ghost, eating only what is given, such as things given at funerals, so funeral food. Whoever longs to steal others' property, but later regrets it, is reborn as a peta feeding on excrement, pus and vomit. Whoever speaks aggressively, angry words, hitting like daggers, becomes a ghost with a mouth like a furnace, burning fiercely with red coals and ashes. So smoke coming out the mouth. Kind of like those who have spoken aggressively, having coals and ashes inside the mouth, fire coming out the mouth. Whoever is cruel-minded, without sympathy and quarrelsome, will become a fiery ghost eating worms, leeches, insects, crabs and beetles. Panchakartipani from the 11th, 12th century, but Asvagosa, but probably from former services. There's a whole book that's also worth reading called Peta, and that's Mahamukayana, who, this is also canonical actually. He goes first to the devas and then he goes to the ghost and asks them one by one, what did you do to become a ghost? And then they report it. Then they are reported on some of these actions. And then he goes back and tell about it to the Buddha, and who then even today this text is recited. Interestingly, when Mahinda, he was an Arahat who came from India, he came here to bring Buddhism here. Then he spoke 2 texts to Queen Anula, which was collected up in Anuradhapura with 500 followers, and also the king of Anuradhapura at that time. And there, Mahinda, he spoke 2 texts, and one of them was the Petavattu, and the other one was about the devas, how they become devas. Vimannavat. So it has actually, these 2 texts he chose to, because they have an immediate bearing on the karma. You tell this is why they become ghosts, and then they tell all the stories, which are real reports from real people, or from real beings, you can say, who have done some mistake. And then he also tells stories about some who didn't do mistakes but did something very good. And then one can learn immediately from these stories. There are around 100 stories in each book, but they are fairly thin. They are part of the Khuddaka Nikaya, the 5th text collection of the Buddhist text. So much for the ghosts, half an hour in. Some other religions describe their God, Yahweh or Allah, and so on, as the ground of all being, from which the whole universe emerges. I've even heard of some of Mahayana and Vajrayana sects of Buddhism use similar language to describe an element of the Buddha that is the ground of all being. Is there anything in Theravada Buddhism that has this, such as dependent origination? Or I'm totally wrong in the sense that the lack of creator God, as the Buddha explained, extend to this ground of all being concept too? There's no ground of all being from which all being comes, no basis in Theravada Buddhism, except maybe one. And you're right on dependent origination, Paticca Samuppada. It's the closest you can come, but this is not a ground. It's more like a principle or a description. So dependent co-origination says that when this exists, that also exists. When this comes, that also comes. When this goes away, that also goes away. So they arise and cease together. They are linked, these 2 phenomena. What does it start with? It starts with ignorance. So if Theravada Buddhism has any notion about a creator God or a ground of all being, it is paradoxically ignorance. Because from ignorance, conditioned by ignorance, arises mental construction. From mental construction arises consciousness. From consciousness arises name and form. From name and form arises the six senses. From the six senses arises contact. From contact arises feeling. From feeling arises craving. From craving arises clinging. From clinging arises becoming. From becoming arises birth. From rebirth arises ages, sickness, and death. From ages, sickness, and death comes suffering. So is the arising of this whole mass of suffering. When ignorance ceases without reminder, mental construction is stilled. With mental construction, sankhara is stilled. Consciousness is stilled. No consciousness, no name and form. No name and form implies no six senses. No six senses implies no contact. No contact, no feeling. No feeling, no craving. No craving, no clinging. No clinging, no becoming. No process of rebecoming. No process, no birth. No becoming, no birth. No birth, no aging, sickness, and death. No aging, sickness, and death. No suffering. So from this ceasing, complete elimination of all ignorance, there is a cessation, irreversible cessation of suffering, or of suffering, of this whole mass of suffering. Ignorance is what? Ignorance is not knowing the Four Noble Truths. Ignorance is not knowing now, before, and later, and in every moment, that all this is suffering, and all this is suffering. And this suffering is caused by craving for all this. And this suffering can end by ending craving for all this. Absence of craving for all this and all that is the end of suffering. And the Noble Eightfold Way is the way to end all suffering. It is ignorance of these Four Noble Truths that sets this whole circus, Turkish circus of suffering, rolling. It's like a train, you cannot get off. You can get off, but it's very difficult. That's a noble way that gets you off this train of suffering. Whether it's a ground of being or it's a ground of not being, I don't know. I don't think there is any ground of being in that sense. Some metaphysical, hyper, super, duper consciousness, blah, blah. No, there's not. Neither inside Buddhism nor out, or outside Buddhism. I hope this answered the question. Question 4. Does the very moment of conception, egg plus sperm cell meet, create a new life, or does the death of the person create the situation for a new life in a suitable body? There's 3 things that has to meet before a being is born. There's the egg, this biology, has to meet the sperm cell, fertilization happens. Then the egg starts growing, it becomes 2 cells, 4 cells, 8 cells, 16 cells, 32 cells, called a morula. Like a small red berry. Morula is a name for a berry. Before this happens, at the moment of conception, a consciousness has to enter. This is the Gandhapa being. This is the person who has died somewhere, or being, other being, animal being, whatever being has died, has to enter this complex. Otherwise, the fetus will keep growing until it reaches some maturity, and then it will fall out with the menstruation. This actually happens 4 times out of 5. So 4 times out of 5 the conception occurs, the biology is rolling, the cells are dividing, a movula is formed, but it doesn't hatch, it doesn't survive this fetus. So it doesn't complete to become a complete being. Why? Because there's no consciousness embedded in this particular thing. It's like a plant. Basically, it falls out with the menstruation. So it's only in 20% of the cases that actually a being is formed. The consciousness being, the conscious Gandhapa being that enters the womb is a non-local form of consciousness. That right at the moment they see their mother and father are having sex, and they feel an irresistible tendency or lust for entering the womb. And this they do because they can go wherever they want as quick as they can think about it. They're not connected with a physical body there. They're only consciousness. It happens in a split second, maybe less than a millionth of a second. They enter the womb there, then they become unconscious unless they are a Buddha to be, Bodhisattva. And then they start growing. It's like the consciousness is sleeping. And then later on they become various degrees of conscious intrauterine in the womb. And then after coming out of the womb, they'll be fully conscious. But consciousness is something apart from the biology created there. So according to Buddhist theory, 3 things has to meet: the egg, the sperm cell, and some consciousness. Then you have a being, a satta, a sentient being, a being who can feel. Otherwise you'll have a fetus who can grow, but it will be malformed and fall out. Usually before the 3rd week of gravitation, it will fall out as a small 2 or 3 sheets of cell layers. They'll fall out with the menstruation. So the girl will not recognize that she's pregnant because she has maybe her menstruation a couple of days late, but not more than that. That's a common thing. That's 80% of all eggs who are fertilized. This one knows from animal models and also human studies. All eggs that are fertilized, 80% of all eggs that are fertilized then fall out. They doesn't become a baby, a fully grown baby. Why? Because no consciousness. There was no consciousness present at the moment when it was necessary. Question 5. Does the rebirth destination match with the karmic accumulation of the dead person? Once again, does the rebirth destination match with the karmic accumulation of the dead person? Yes, exactly. And how does it work? It works so that the dead person consciousness is momentary. So the Judy moment is the same as this any moment now. There also you have changing consciousness. You can only have one door open. So you don't hear me or see me or understand what I say at the same time, exactly the same time. There's probably something like 100,000 billion mental states per second. If it's a Planck moment that is defining the Dhamma states. The Buddha doesn't say exactly how much it is. When he usually doesn't say, it's because it can be a harmonica in relativity. But that's another issue, but it's probably very, very fast. So it's much faster than our computers are today. And it's probably around the absolute fastness of a moment. And the Planck moment is a minimal moment that cannot make it smaller. It's kind of like the atom of time. 5.6 to 10 to the minus 43 seconds. So it's a very, very tiny amount of time, but it cannot be chopped over. So time is discrete. Time is not continuous. And there, in such a short moment, one can either see something or hear something or understand something. Only one of the senses can report by attention to the mind. So you only have either visual consciousness or auditory consciousness or mental consciousness understanding. This is kind of like the accumulation of that, all these consciousnesses that has an object and also has an intention. They will have a certain you can say a certain characteristic at the last moment the very last moment of death, then the next moment, the discrete moment, for example, now you think you have the illusion that you think that you can understand what I'm saying. At the same time, you can see the video. At the same time, you can hear it. So there's three kinds of consciousness. That this should happen at the same time, simultaneously. This is not the case. First one sees something, then maybe one sees something again, then one hears a little thing, then one understands a little thing, then one sees again. But because it goes so quickly, then one cannot discriminate between these kinds of consciousness. They look like they are continuous. Just like when you go into the cinema and see 24 frames per second, then it looks like a continuous movement over the screen. But actually it's 24 still pictures per second coming in front of a lamp and then being projected up on the screen. Same thing here, discrete reality. So right at this in between these two consciousness, a moment here, one conscious moment, and the next moment. There you can say the consciousness in this case here, consciousness has folded into a form. Why? Because I'm clinging to this body. So my consciousness is superimposed on this physical form. But in the case of the death moment, it cannot superimpose anymore on the physical form. So it has to find a new form to superimpose on. And it does that when find in a world, in a dimension. Imagine it is now just like any other quanta of energy. It has these two dualistic natures. One is the particle-like nature. This also goes for consciousness, is individual consciousness. And another thing is a wave-like nature, which is non-local. And all quanta of energy, including those that is an expression of consciousness, has these two aspects, a local aspect and a non-local aspect. And it's a non-local aspect of consciousness, the everywhere presence that is everywhere, that is jumping into and folding into the particle-like aspect in a situation which fits to its karmic accumulation. So it comes with some probabilities, a probability distribution that has been accumulated over an immense period of time, and also the last life. And these are an expression about where it can fall out, where it can manifest its particle-like aspect. And it will be kind of like sucked towards these circumstances. If these circumstances are real over there, then it's sucked over there. If they are real over there, then they're sucked over there. It's just a matter of a system who try to minimize the difference between its own constituents and the outer systems also. So it's try to find this global minima of difference between its own constituents, its own characteristics, and the outer characteristics. A very angry person reborn among the angry demon, or in the hell, where there's a lot of conflict, because this accumulation. The probabilities for this are fitting. A very harmonious person will be reborn among the devas because they are fitting at another level where there are higher degrees of freedom and higher harmony also, higher satisfaction. If ignorance is the dominant, confusion, panic in the death moment, from this confusion, from this uncertainty, from this doubt, then animal rebirth on various levels is to be expected. So yes, the karmic accumulation indeed does determine the rebirth destination. I hope this answers this question. If the Buddha spoke against the rituals, why do rituals exist within Buddhism? For example, a white string which is tied around the wrist is believed to be a threat of protection. Also, can you explain the significance of the daily Buddha Puja, in which offerings of foods is placed upon an altar in front of the Buddha image and recitation of Pali is chanted? Why do we prostrate ×3 in front of an image of a Buddha? Yes, all this is Buddhist culture. It has nothing to do with Buddhism. Buddha has never told that we should do like that. This is something that he has after the lay people complained about when he was not in Jetavati, what should they give to? He was gone somewhere else, to another state. He was wandering around all the time. And so he said, okay, then you can make a Buddha statue, or you can plant a Bodhi tree and then make offering to that. And that will count as a representation of the Sangha or of me. But it doesn't, this representation doesn't, it's nothing, something else. And it's just, this Buddha statue is just what it is. It's a piece of wood that has been carved out and gilded or painted. It's nothing more than this. And the same thing with the pin nool bond around. There's no protection in the thread itself. The protection effect is when you see, is something you get in Buddhist countries when you go and take the 5 precepts. Say, I promise to the monks, I accept the training rule of not killing, not stealing, not lying, not sexually abusing, and not taking drugs and alcohol. This you give. Then they give you 5 white threads around the right wrist. There's nothing in the threads themselves that protects. It's the being that sees the threads on his own hand, remembers, I have given these promises. I've taken these 5 precepts. Now I have to stick to them and don't tell a lie. That's a protective effect. To think there's some effect in itself, for example, we cut off the thread and then put it on another being, for example, around the neck of a dog, then that they protect a dog. That's silly. That's not the case, because the dog doesn't understand the significance of these 5 threads. I have never heard about the 5 precepts. So this has no effect in itself. Why is the food put in front of the Buddha statue? It's because there's seniority in the Sangha. So the Buddha is the oldest one, but he's dead, so we give to the Buddha statue instead. But first you give to the Buddha, then you give to the Dhamma, and then you give to the Sangha, and then the lay people themselves eat as number 3. So it's just a matter of seniority. Pali chanting don't help, don't protect anything. Pirita, to chant Pirita, no sound can have no effect in itself. It is animism and fetishism to think that there is some power in a thread itself, or in a piece of wood itself, or in a sound coming out of whoever's mouth. There's no protective effect in that. Nothing whatsoever. It is the mind that can protect. If a mind becomes more serious, more dedicated by hearing this, then there can be some secondary effect. But this is not the effect of the sound itself. It's the effect of those who reflect upon it. The guy who sees his 5 threads and thinks, I have to stick to this. I have to stick to this sila. Then this will protect. Otherwise, it would not protect. So again, it's Buddhist culture. It's something that has accumulated over the centuries. As an example, the first 2 or 3 centuries after the Buddha's parinibbana, after his going to nibbana, that was considered bad style to have a Buddha statue. So if you see the early depictions, the first 200 years, he's always depicted as an empty seed under the Bodhi tree, or as a footprint under the Bodhi tree. But there's no form there. So there they understood that this form is suffering. It's not something that you worship by making gilt statues of it. But now, 2,500 years later, Buddhism is probably most signified by all these Buddha statues. It's said that in Thailand there are more Buddha statues than people. So maybe it has gone a little out of control. So it is always when it has happened also to Christianity and also to Hinduism and all religions. When the founder goes away, the understanding goes down, then superstition goes up. And superstition is embedded in the culture that surrounds this religion or this philosophy. But Buddhist culture is one thing, Buddhism is another thing. We have to go back to what the Buddha said, what he did, and not identify Buddhism with Buddhist culture, because these are 2 different things. And some aspects of Buddhist culture today, 2,500 years after, had degenerated into something that can be called superstition, blind superstition. And this we should take out. Go back to basics. What did the Buddha say? What did he recommend? And he spoke about blind ritualism a lot. He came from a tradition, from a Brahminical tradition of offering food, of offering live animals, also killing human beings to be offered. And it's a culture that unfortunately is practiced even today in India and also in Nepal in big numbers, where there are maybe 1,000 calves or goats offered in one single day, in the most inhumane way, by getting the head chopped off by a sword. And also this offering is also completely ineffective. It ruins the future of those who do it. It doesn't elevate their future. And it doesn't protect anything about anything. Rather the opposite. What if life just is neither good nor bad, and just is a faulty perception of ego, or the belief in an entity called I, or me, which perceive experiences as being good or bad, and labels everything like such, good or bad? Well, there's something here that is a faulty perception of ego, or a belief in an entity called I and me. Yes, so far so good. I agree completely. There's no self. There's a belief in a self. This Sakkaya Ditthi, that this body is mine, is me. These feelings are mine, me. This perception are me, mine. And this consciousness is me, or mine. This is basically this belief. This is the first bar that has to be opened in order to become a stream entrant. This is Sakkaya Ditthi, the wrong view. Ditthi, Miccha Ditthi, wrong view, that this is my group of phenomena. That this clinging, and not seeing that this is a group of clinging, a cluster of clinging to 5 things. Clinging to form, clinging to feeling, clinging to perception, clinging to mental construction, and clinging to consciousness itself of the various kinds. It's not seeing that one identifies this group of phenomena as I, me, what I am. And this is a faulty perception. No doubt about it. This is an illusion. It's this very illusion that keeps being in samsara. Because they have to break out of that illusion to go out of samsara, to go to nibbana, to end suffering. Then this illusion, then there's something that, this illusion that experiences good as bad, that good and bad is also an illusion. This is not the case. There is actually what is good and bad. You can say kusala, akusala, what is, we would say, advantageous and or disadvantageous. So this individuality, this cluster of clinging, this stream of 5 things that travel through space and time, like a hand, a process of hand, ceasing here, arising here, ceasing here, arising here, ceasing here, arising here. It can do something cleverly, then it elevates itself, become more happy. Or it can do something uncleverly, disadvantageous, akusala, and then it falls down to a lower state of being. For example, hungry ghost or animal. So this, if you kill another being, if these 5 clusters of clinging kill another 5 clusters of clinging, then these 5 clusters of clinging will experience in its feelings component more pain. So this is detrimental. This is bad. If it gives some food to another being, these 5 clusters of clinging will have more pleasure than pain in its feeling department. This is cleverly, so it will be more happy, be elevated. So there's an illusion of the ego. Yes, that's true, but there's still good and bad. There's still this group of 5 things can still do things that destroys itself or elevates itself. So good and bad is not an illusion. It's crazy to kill in this universe. It was crazy to kill in the last universe. And it will also be crazy to kill in the next universe. Why so? Because the killer will come to feel a lot of pain on this, and suffering, and shortening of his own life length. So this absolute morality, this sila, this stance, this regularity of the Dhamma stance, said the Buddha. the regularity of the Dhamma stands, while everything else passes through time and space. Enough for today. Thank you for your attention. Remember to click subscribe, and then one notice. Buddha said that one can gain much merit by spreading the Dhamma. And that's what I'm trying to do here. And you can also get much gain. How so? By sharing this Dhamma, these videos, and whatever audios or whatever Dhamma drop text you get by email to your friends and colleagues and relatives. And the Buddha, he said, who should you share it to? You should not share it indiscriminately. You should choose out those who you think is worth listening to. So those you think are worth listening to in your surroundings, among your friends, family, colleagues, and so on, you should share this Dhamma. This is good for you. This is good for them. This is good for me. This is good for the world. This is good for everybody. And therefore we should do it. Thank you. 1 hour, 3 minutes and 11 seconds. Namo Tasso Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Worthy, honorable, and perfectly self-enlightened was the blessed Buddha. Thank you for your attention, and have a nice day.